Hi, I'm Edwin. In 2024, I tried using Workaway for my travels. Workaway is a platform where you can go and help a host with one of their projects, and in exchange, they'll provide you with some kind of accommodation. They'll usually give you a bed to sleep on and 3 meals a day, but accommodation can vary host to host. I had 3 experiences on Workaway. My first experience was great. I had a clean bed to sleep on, I had plenty of food to eat, the hosts were lovely and fun to connect with, and I got to renovate a train station, which was probably one of the coolest things I've ever worked on. My second experience on Workaway, despite the fact that the host had 5-star reviews littered all over her profile, ended up being quite awful. I didn't have a comfortable bed to sleep on. I was sleeping outside on the ground in a tent. There wasn't enough food to eat, despite the fact that the host said that there would be 3 meals a day provided. The little bit of food that was there ended up actually giving me food poisoning, and when I asked for more food, the host said no. I left this Workaway and I found out that I couldn't actually write about my experience because Workaway has built a review system that discourages you from writing honestly about your negative experiences. Workaway will most likely censor your review, and if they don't censor your review, they'll show it to the host that you stayed with before the host writes a review for you, giving the host the opportunity to write a review in revenge of what you've written. I left that second Workaway and went into my third, hoping that that was just a one-off experience. But at my third Workaway, I ended up being screamed at twice. When I left this third Workaway and wanted to write honestly about my negative experience, yet again I found that I didn't want to, because I knew that I would either be censored or that the host would see my review and then write a revenge review on my profile, making it so no host would ever want to pick me as a helper again. This is when I began my research, and I found that many people that use Workaway run into the same issue with the review system. They go to a host who has plenty of 5-star reviews and not a single negative thing written about them, only to find one of many issues. They might find that they don't have a clean or safe bed to sleep on. They might find that they don't have enough food to eat, or the food that is provided is dangerous to eat. Some people actually find that hosts can't even provide clean drinking water, and in some extreme circumstances, hosts actually exploit the helpers for what is essentially free manual labor, and in some cases are unfortunately verbally abusive or physically abusive. In this video, I'm hoping to outline the flaws in Workaway's review system and how it is potentially leading to these kinds of situations. I'm not accusing Workaway of intentionally putting anybody in any kind of dangerous or unsafe position. I am simply trying to outline how there seems to be flaws in the system that is currently built, and I'm also looking to break down how these flaws could be fixed to make Workaway a safer community to be a part of. And with that, let's get in to the good stuff. Okay. Love me a good corny intro, man. No, seriously. All right, so we're going to hit up Workaway now. Okay, so here we are on the Workaway website. And I spent hours doing research on Workaway's website trying to find people with negative reviews. What I did was pretty simple, and you can actually do the exact same yourself if you don't believe what I'm saying. Go onto Workaway's website, open up the host list, and start scrolling. You'll notice that almost every single listing has 5 stars. There will be some listings that you'll find that'll have below 5 stars, like for example, this one here, 4.5. Click into this listing, go down to feedback, and check what people have written about them. So there is a 4-star review here, and they did actually write something about how they have to admit that they were overwhelmed by everything. First week in Indonesia, it was a lot to process, blah, 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 blah. So this person didn't have a 5-star experience, and they wrote a little bit about that. Okay, so this is really important to note. 5-star reviews or 4-star reviews with a little bit of something negative written aren't a problem and will almost always make it onto Workaway. It's when you start getting into the 3-star, 2-star, and 1-star reviews that you run into the problem. I did a ton of research trying to find 1-star, 2-star, or 3-star reviews, and after hours and hours and hours on Workaway, I created a list of what I found to be censored negative reviews and uncensored negative reviews. I actually took this list and put it in the description of this video, so if you're curious to see the research that I'd done so you don't have to do the digging yourself, just take a look at this list and click through the links of some of these hosts. Let's get into a couple of them here on this video because it'll give you a better idea of what we're working with. So these censored negative reviews are reviews that had 1 star, 2 star, or 3 stars that were completely censored by Workaway, or some of the text was censored by Workaway. Just jump into a random one here, and let's get into the feedback. So, okay, here is an example of a censored review. This was left by somebody in October of 2022, and the only thing that it displays is a quote from Workaway saying, "Please see our feedback policy for more info on why this review is not displayed." We'll close this one, go to the next, just click another random one here. And we can see on this review, where's the censored review? Somewhere down here. Okay, here's another censored review. "Please see our feedback policy for more info about why this review is not displayed." This is the same case with all these. All these censored reviews all display that same message. Here's another listing. Here's another review that's censored. Scroll down further. Here's another review that's censored. Okay, so let's click this link that Workaway is providing, and let's see the feedback policy that Workaway has written. This is a single web page that can be found on Workaway's website and is littered with spelling, punctuation, and grammatical mistakes. It's also written in a very vague manner, so it's actually kind of hard to understand what they're doing with your feedback, but we'll take a look at it anyway. So after briefly breaking down that feedback is important and that over 95% of feedback submitted is positive, they start to mention how they handle negative feedback. The first thing they say is, quote, "We won't allow abusive words, insulting text, or feedback containing overly personal criticism." They further go on to describe that, and we know that occasionally clashes of personality can escalate to a war of words. It's fascinating that they would mention that reviews can escalate to a war of words, but we'll come back to that in a minute. They then mention how different sites handle their own feedback differently from Workaway, and then they break down with a little more detail what Workaway does to handle negative feedback. The first thing they do is that a member of the Workaway team looks at the feedback and they'll start an investigation if both parties have left negative feedback. And then the second thing they do is they publish your feedback. But then there's the caveat. Please note, however, if there are abusive, derogatory, or offensive comments, the text will either be redacted or kept confidential. We do this to stop an escalation or situation where people often want to retaliate to the opinions left, which is often subjective and personal to each individual case. Now, I want to bring it back to that point. Workaway has now mentioned twice in their own policy that they're worried about a clash of personalities, a war of words, or people retaliating to one another. This brings me to my next very important point about how Workaway has built their review system. What we just covered was how Workaway censors many negative reviews, either completely or in part. The second thing that their review system does is it actually allows the host that you stayed with to see the review that you've written about them before they review you. That's pretty wild. You can write a negative review for somebody and they can see it before they write anything for you. If you think about basic human nature, this gives a perfect opportunity for a revenge review, for retaliation, for a war of words, for personality clashes, as Workaway calls it. And this, I believe, is the main reason that you can't find negative feedback on Workaway. Yes, there is censorship, but the most important thing is that it's easy to have your profile on Workaway as a helper completely destroyed by leaving an honest negative review for a host you had a bad experience with, only to find that the host has written a negative review for you in retaliation. So not only do you now have a burned profile that you're probably never going to be able to use again, but you're also out $60 and you had a bad experience at another Workaway. This is a pretty bad combination, and it seems like Workaway is pretty aware of the fact that people do write retaliatory and revenge reviews, but they're not doing much to change it other than just implicitly mentioning on their website that they know people do this. Okay, so let's look at a couple of these so-called revenge reviews where somebody has left a review for either a host or a helper, and that other person had time to think about how to reply to that review. We'll go down into my note here, which you can find in the description of this video, and there's a few of them here under the uncensored negative review section that contain some of this kind of retaliatory feedback. So this one here, for example, is a project in Spain, and you can see this is a great example here. So somebody had left a 3-star review for the host. She mentions how she was challenged by the children that she was working with at this project, and then the host left a review a few days later with the exact same rating of 3 stars. The host did this again with another helper here. Somebody had left her 3 stars and actually had part of her review redacted by Workaway, only for the host to then leave a review almost 2 weeks later. And so essentially what this means is the host took 2 weeks to think about how to respond to this review and decided to leave 2 stars for that helper. Here's another one. Helper left 3 stars for the host on May 19th, had part of their review redacted, and then again, about 2 weeks later, had left a 1-star review for that helper who had left a negative piece of feedback. This is not the only listing with this kind of problem. Let's take a look at this one here. So this is one in Chile. Somebody had left a review that was censored by Workaway on the 4th of February. This is actually a review left by the host for the helper. The helper saw that they got a 1-star review from the host, and then the helper responded nearly 3 weeks later with another 1-star review for the host. So the helper had 3 weeks to think about how to get back at the host for leaving a piece of negative feedback. And so this is the thing, these are not the only examples that are on Workaway. You can jump onto Workaway right now, even if you're not a paid member, and you can find reviews like this. It's really not that difficult. If you spend an hour or two on Workaway, and you're lucky enough to find some of the reviews that haven't been censored or hidden by Workaway, you'll see that there are many reviews people have left that are clearly written in revenge of somebody leaving negative feedback for them. All right, now that we've taken a look at censored reviews, uncensored reviews, and retaliatory reviews, I want to dig a little bit deeper into the research I did in trying to get people's experience on Workaway. And unfortunately, I found that a lot of people that use Workaway also run into the same sorts of problems. So what I ended up doing was I actually took the policy that Workaway has written about negative feedback, and I used it to try and reach out to people. Workaway states on their own website that, quote, "We allow Workawayers to be contacted privately by any paid member to find out further information should they choose to." And so what this means is that if you want to reach out to somebody who left a review and they're not paying for the site anymore, well, you're going to run into this, a quote that just says you can only contact Workawayers who have an active membership. Luckily, I spent hours and hours on Workaway's website, and I actually found people who had both censored and uncensored reviews that I reached out to try and hear their story about what they had experienced on Workaway. I reached out to these people with a simple message just asking if they could talk more to this experience that they seem to have had, trying to write honestly about it, and then being punished by the way that the review system is built. So I ended up finding 7 people. Of these 7 people, 4 of them read my message but didn't reply. One of them confirmed that they had a bad experience on Workaway, but they didn't have enough time to sit down. Another couple from England graciously said yes and spent time sharing their story with me, which I'm going to share with you guys in a minute. And then I had actually had a second interview lined up with somebody else, but at the last minute, right before we talked, they declined, actually stating that they were feeling anxious about the conversation due to the traumatic experience that they had with their host on Workaway. Thankfully, I did end up getting the chance to speak to Roxxi and James, a couple from England who had a pretty bad experience out at a host in Greece. And so now we're going to jump into what their story was like, both on the host's property and when they tried to deal with the problem through Workaway in its review system and in contacting Workaway itself. Here are James and Roxxi. We spoke in September of 2024, just a few months after they had had their bad experience on Workaway. We ended up talking for nearly an hour. I've cut a little bit of that interview so that we can save some time on this video. But if you're interested in seeing the entire uncut interview, you're more than welcome to watch it by clicking on the link in the description of this video. When we got into this interview, they were originally talking about how they were excited to go to their Workaway.
The reason why we actually got a membership to it and we're like, okay, we're definitely doing a Workaway, was for the one place that we booked. And we were like, this place seems perfect for us. It was a little animal sanctuary. We're both vegans, so we're like taking care of the animals in the day, and then in the evening you get to look after the goats. I was like, and you get to get free food as well there. I was like,
and then when they got there, they immediately started running into problems, and I'll just let them share what those problems were.
The location is not where it says. It says it's like 20 minutes from a main kind of city or town. It's not. It's I'd say half-hour walk to a 3 streets and a church type of village. Like literally nothing there. Absolutely nothing there. And then it's about a 2-hour bus to get to the city.
Yeah. And so not only was the location not accurate, but when they got to the property itself, they pretty quickly found that it wasn't actually safe to be at.
And it's completely filthy and disorganized and really just
when you collect the dog poop, for some reason they made you carry it through the house, and then they just go wash their hands in the sink where we cook and stuff, and like it's all the same cloths and everything.
And then her husband showed me that there was staled, caked on piss or urine on the dog bowl, and he just like scraped it off with his fingernails.
Yeah, and then you wash your hands in the sink, and yeah, and they were sweeping the dog poo and putting it in the bags, and she literally had that, and then she put it down to go and stir the food, which is cooking like next to it, like in this outside kitchen they've got, and then like just went back to doing the poop and stuff like that.
Wow. Okay, so the place is filthy, and
yeah, one other thing was they said they provide meals. That was part of the deal. You work and you get the accommodation and the meals. The other workawayers said they didn't eat there because they were scared of getting sick. So they went out into town and they bought food, and they showed us where they went to get food. So they weren't getting any food from the house at all.
24 hours I was there, I didn't drink any water because I'd had a bottle of water before I arrived, that I bought. So I just used that the whole time. Other than that, I didn't have a single extra bit. It just felt completely unclean. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to drink anything. I only ate when we went out to this little town and we grabbed some food.
The location is not accurate. The property is filthy and unsafe. The food isn't safe to eat. Roxxi even said the water wasn't safe to drink. Could there be more problems? It turns out there could be.
Yeah, the hours were way more than they were meant to be as well, and you don't really get 2 days off a week. They're like, okay, you can get 2 days off, but you've got to do 5 days first, and then we need you for the weekend, and then you've got to have separate days and can't overlap. So we're like, okay, so we work 11 days, and then we might get 1 day off at a time. Is it like that? And they were like, well, yeah.
The other workaway, the girl that we didn't see, but this guy told us about, she'd worked, was it 2 or 3 weeks without getting a day off, and she had to fight for her day off. And the workaway that we saw only had, I think he worked there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he only had 2 days off.
Yeah.
After running into all these problems, James and Roxxi decided enough was enough. They had originally intended to stay for an entire month, but they only ended up staying for 1 day. They made their exit from the property, and they wanted to write an honest negative review about these problems that they experienced with this host on Workaway. Here's when I started asking them what it was like for them to write about their experience on Workaway itself. So you guys finally got out of there. You decided to leave a review. And did you know at the time of leaving a review that your host could see it first before they left one?
We were careful about how we worded it, so they couldn't just.
Oh yeah.
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 because we saw the way they'd replied to other reviews and made the person just seem lazy or whatever. So we were like, we've got to be really careful that they can't just do that because
We even worded it in such a way that's like, this is constructive feedback. It's not an attack. Like, we just want to give people the facts so they're not blindsided when they go. But because, as James says, we've read other reviews where people would say similar things and then they would just attack and be like, this is yours. They didn't want to work. They came not wanting this, blah, blah, blah.
Were you ever contacted by Workaway about the fact that you received a negative review and your profile had essentially now been labeled negative?
They hadn't.
no, we just checked on our account and one day we saw, oh, we got a review back and we clicked on it and we couldn't see it. And then we realized our review had gone as well. And
so you never got any contact from Workaway saying that your review had been censored by the platform?
No, no, we contacted them to ask them about it because we said we raised safeguarding concerns because people were potentially being exploited there and they didn't provide the food that they said and it didn't match the pictures. And
you contacted Workaway directly, saying all of these things as well, not just on the comment, but directly saying this is not okay.
What you're looking at on the screen now is the entirety of James and Roxy's original review. You can pause this video to read it, or you can just check it out in the description below. Roxy and James posted this review. It got censored. The hosts gave them a 1-star review in revenge. And this is where Roxy makes a really interesting point about how this affects helpers and their profiles.
If I were a host and I saw some people coming at me with 1 star, I wouldn't want that.
yeah, we've got one review and it's really bad. Why would they want us? Why can't they get someone?
It's the same thing like a hostel. If you look at a hostel and it's only got 1 star and it's that one thing, you're not going to go.
Well, that was James and Roxy's story of Workaway. I wish that theirs was an exception. I wish that it was just one negative experience and a sea of positive experiences that people have on Workaway. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. Workaway appears to be actively censoring and hiding many of its negative reviews, making the site look like a wealth of beautiful travel experiences with hosts that only have good intentions and are looking to provide an amazing experience for helpers. On the contrary, many hosts on Workaway seem to be actively protected by the platform itself, and thereby can actually put helpers in dangerous, unclean, or otherwise unsafe situations. If you are thinking about using Workaway, I would advise you to think twice, and if you are going to stay with a host, make sure that you video call them before you go to stay with them, make sure you've seen the property on video, and that you feel comfortable with the conditions they've laid out on their profile. Be ready to have an exit plan and leave if you do end up running into one of these kinds of situations. Workaway's review system could be very easily fixed. Airbnb has a review system which works like this. A user stays with a host. The user and the host can rate each other, but they can't see each other's rating until both people have left a review. That or a 14-day window passes, and then the review that has been written gets posted, and the other person cannot reply. This ensures that people don't get into a situation, like on Workaway, where reviews are simply written out of spite or revenge. It also enables people to honestly write about bad experiences that they have on properties and warn other people about potential problems with these hosts. I hope that one day Workaway does choose to change the way that their review system works. If you happen to be an employee of Workaway and you're watching this video, if I've missed something about your current review system and you'd like to tell me about it, I would love to talk to you. Please get in touch with me via the email that's left on my YouTube channel, and I'll be sure to interview you and make another video so that I can put out Workaway's statement on why this review system is built as such. And that's Workaway's review system, or at least the research that I've done on it. I hope that this video was thorough and that it helped you. But if there is any negative feedback that you have for me, you're more than welcome to leave it in the comments down below. I'm always looking for ways to improve my speaking ability, my research capabilities, and my video editing. So I actually do encourage you to post things that you think could be improved. Otherwise, if you do have a negative experience about Workaway to share or anything else to comment, I would love to hear about it. And you can share it with other people who have used Workaway or plan to use Workaway as well. Thanks again for your time, and take care.